You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
And we're live. So it appears, anyway. I don't really know what happened there. I am hosting the show today. Boat is out doing a family thing, so we don't have him today. He will be back next week. But one of the things that was interesting is we were showing the pre-roll there, and abruptly my screen shifted over to see Drayden playing Kerbals. I don't know why. I don't know if anybody else saw that or what happened. Already getting Pacify and Pork and Duck Killer and Spammy Sumo and Rockburn. Wow, that's a lot of subscribers. That is awesome. Thank you guys. So here we are. I'm actually curious if anybody in chat can tell me whether they also saw like Drayden playing Kerbals there on the stream briefly or what. But Twitch has been curious recently. So yeah, we've got an interesting show here today, guys. We have a bunch of guests. We have Asher Elias, the 24th best FC in the Imperium. We have Jay Amazingness, and we have Captain Patrick Archer, who is you're still with Tri, right?
I'm back in Tri since about 4 weeks. Yeah.
I know that there has been some changeovers there. So I do apologize to everyone. I'm constantly like now checking compulsively at the screen over here to make sure that the stream doesn't abruptly shit the bed. So let's just sort of go around the room, as it were. Captain Patrick Archer, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and why we should care?
Right. Well, if you saw the Meta Show like 6 months ago, I was on it a couple of times. I used to run part of Tri, and yeah, some stuff happened which made me leave, and I took a break from Eve basically. When I came back, I was in NC Dot, and yeah, I missed my friends in Tri, so I poked them, and I went on TeamSpeak like under a different name, and I just said like hi, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, holy shit, are you coming back?" So yeah, that made me decide fairly quickly.
It was like a return to the family kind of thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Like I came back right as they started the invasion of Innsmouth again, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
The prodigal CEO returns.
What's the deal with you leaving? Like you steal a bunch of stuff?
No, so there was I can do a short story on that, but I don't want to get into it too much. So there was I was running Quam
6 months ago where we talked about it too.
Yeah, well, I was running Quam, the one of the biggest corps in Tri. There was a AFK CEO for like 3 years, and it was a really old corp with like really old members, but they were all away, and they came back and decided that they wanted to do their own Nullsec thing again with Quam. But they didn't just ask though, give me the corp back. When I started a new job, so I was semi AFK for like 3 weeks, and I came back and they had basically kicked me out, and I had all the money in a separate a corp wallet, like of my own corp, so they couldn't, like if that happened, they couldn't steal the money, and I refused to give it back because they were going to leave with the corp, and they actually did a couple of weeks ago now, and pretty much everyone left the corp and merged into other Tri-corps. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, besides that, the next follow-up question would be, what was it like in NC Dot compared to being in a Tri?
Well, I didn't play that much. I was on some fleets. I think the FC team in NC Dot is really good, and that's actually impressive. I was impressed by that, but I don't know. I think Tri has some crabs sometimes, but the average Slime member in NC is at least far more committed to their roll call as I thought they would be, and that's not a bad thing or anything. I like to play more offensively, like Tri. Our wars, at least the one that we fought the last years, actually matters, and we did content deployments in the past with some dreads, but they don't interest me as much. There's nothing against NC Dot. They're getting good fights as well sometimes, but just like the friends in Tri I've had for 4 or 5 years. I mean, they're dropping supers on it to save darkness sometimes, like for you guys, and I don't know what they're doing in Gehi now. I haven't really been paying attention. Got my hands full with Tri.
They've been getting outformed by the QFC. QFC's making NC Dot stand down.
I don't know about that. But sure, you're the authority on that one.
I never
Was it fair to
expected
say
to be
you were
able to
more
say
of
that. Jay, you
a
go.
line member? Was it fair to say that you were more of a line member in NC Dot than like
I
a
was I was in
FC
the I
person?
was in the FC team, and I did like some backup angers and stuff. I wasn't online enough to get have a prominent role like Killer Bee, for instance. And even if I was, like, obviously in
Yes.
every big alliance, there's just like place for one or two like the biggest dudes, and yeah, there's not much room for anything else. And it's not that I didn't want that or anything. Like, I
It
didn't
must have been
really
hard to
put
go
in the
into.
effort.
No one knew you there, really, did they?
I mean, some of them knew, like, obviously, like, most of the FC team knew me, and I've known Vince for a while. And there's, like, some old dudes from Quam that they used to be in Quam or NC Dot. So it wasn't that I didn't know anyone, but it's just, like, I have way more friends in Tri, and I didn't even plan to go back, but they came on TeamSpeak, and they convinced me in, like, 5 minutes. So, yeah.
5 minutes. Well, that's good. I mean, I didn't expect this to turn into like a whole thing about like your personal history regarding NC versus Tri, but I am, it was very curious for me today during the fireside to say like, hey guys, things are quiet because NC is on our border in Gehi and have been accomplishing absolutely nothing and have been getting outformed by the QFC. Like that's just weird.
I think part of that is because I think, well, I can't speak for everyone, but when I look at the Tri line member, I think they want the big wars, they want the meaningful fights, and going to Gehi, there's no strategic long-term goal that they can achieve there other than just getting fights. So some of the line members actually care about that, and they don't log in, and that's probably a reason that why fleets would be a bit smaller. At least that's what happened when we did it. Similar things with Tri.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into, I think, our top story here in a second now. Jay got away for a moment there without introducing herself. Who are you, Jay Amazingness?
One of the greatest posters in Gunfleet.
How far have we fallen?
Was mean.
Yes.
I run the FC team in GSF and do much other stuff.
Sweet. All right. Perfect timing there on that dead air. I didn't let anybody else know on
Yeah, I was wondering what happened
Discord.
there. I was like, "What? Did I just make things like super fucking awkward then, or like did we just not stop talking?"
It was all your fault. No, I wanted to do the top story without telegraphing to everybody, hey guys, I'm going to press the top story button. And so we just did with the official transition into the top story. So this is an area where we can sort of bring Captain Patrick Archer on to talk about his knowledge and expertise rather than his personal backgrounds with things that happened between NC Dot versus Tri. Of course, left to our own devices, I'm happy to talk mad shit about NC Dot all day, every day. But the top story for this week is Legion of Death is XIX. Legion of Death is going to be joining the Legacy Coalition in Impasse. They've been.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Should I start off? Or
Yeah, I mean, I'll do a little bit more here. Just they've been at war with Triumvirate for like the last 10 months. The DRF will be joining Legacy in Impasse to rebuild, getting a couch. They lost their Renter's base to DPLD. And they lost Innsmother to Tri and Lumpy, so they've decided to basically give up and move and rebuild. And Captain Patrick, please take it away. As you could hear from the sound in Asher's voice, this is actually news that a lot of people did not know, and that is why it's our top story. What do we got?
Question before you start, Captain Patrick, because I want to know. This is X-Death's group that we're talking about.
Yeah, this is the actual DRF, like the X-Death Gemini coalition, and everybody that merged into them after they abandoned drones, basically. So I don't have the exact details on where they're exactly going. There's a lot of stories about Impasse, some that are getting parts of Provi, and some of their groups are going to rent in Fatabulis, apparently, like the shittier groups. So it could change, obviously, but yeah, they're announcing their big meeting tomorrow at 1500 in their Keepstar, where Car will do a bit of a talk. Funny enough, they're gonna look outside the Keepstar and see our Titans put their Keepstar in hull. So we'll see if that sparks a fight or if they're just gonna jump out. But yeah, we started this 4 weeks. When I joined, basically the week before that, Try moved into 1v Tech and Scalding Pass together with Lumpy and Red Menace Coalition, who obviously has space in period basis as well. And we just started to push in, and then Skill Yourself at the time was in Dronelands. I think Capco had a big story about it. Was it last week or the week before on the Meta Show?
Last week.
Yeah, last week. Obviously he talked like about what they were doing, but they were starting to push in Solar. So Solar then evac'd from Outer Passage into 88A, Keepstar, and just basically now they're all rolling over. I don't like we just don't understand. We had one sort of super brawl in LVL 2 weeks ago. I think you've seen that. And yeah, we were all gearing up for another super fight, and all of a sudden nobody forms anymore. Like 5 days in a row, we're switching Solve without anyone contesting. And we're just like, people like Corps have been told to start evacing because apparently XX did a secret move up with their supers real quick to ninja them out because they have no Fortizar evac route set up. They just have Astra houses, which of course with the new changes are amazing because you can just lock dictors off on them and scram everything that Sinos in and then just jump in Titans to DD. So that's what we've been doing. We've just been killing all the stragglers. There's no real form up from any of their dudes, even though there's like 250 in local all the time. It's really weird. It reminds me of when FCON fell cascaded.
I mean, this is a really extreme failure cascade. I mean, it makes more sense, and I'm glad that we had Capku as a guest on last week because he explained, for those of you who are looking for a great overview of the sort of long-term nature of this war, Capku, look at the recording from last week. This has been going on for many, many months, that a number of entities have been putting pressure on Legion of Death. And so for those of us who haven't been paying as close attention, it does seem just like this sudden collapse. But, you guys have been working at this for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, this is like somewhere last year when everybody was just complaining about game mechanics and nothing happened. So we said, fuck it, we're going to reset everyone. There was a big hype about it on EVE News. Some blogs were leaked and we were like the big bad guys. So we started hacking away at FCON. And I think me and Gosh were on the Meta Show. And on the same day, like at the same hour as we were on the Meta Show, FCON's coalition announced that they were joining the DRF. So all of a sudden, we're in the middle of this 40k hostile coalition. So we just went out with everything we've got. We managed to kill FCON with some help of CO2, but then they fell cascaded with like your glorious work, obviously. And then, then everybody thought, well, try's done now. And we kept going and then ended up losing Innsmother February. I think half February, our Keepstar died. And we went back for a bit of R&R in Curse. And yeah, now we're here. It's interesting.
That's pretty fantastic. I'm going to toss things over to Asher. What do you think about what's going on here as somebody who is surprised to discover the idea that they're going to go crash on Legacy's couch?
Thank you for throwing it to me after I was not allowed to introduce myself.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's.
I was summarily demoted. I had been promoted to 23rd best FC, but if the God King thinks I'm the 24th best FC, that must be true. All right. Okay. Let me refocus. I'm sorry.
It's hard out there.
It is. So I'm all right. So here's a couple things that just popped into my head. Brave already owns half of Impasse, right? So that means if they're going to Impasse, if DRFs are going to Impasse, they're going from owning, let's say, 8 or 9 regions to owning half a region, or Legacy is going to kick Brave out. I don't think that's the case, right? So talk about your fall from grace. But the thing that's the most impressive to me here, the thing that's the most interesting, is that for the last 3 years, this space was viewed as untakeable. It's in Russian time. No one can contest it. All the Russians are there already. There's no one to fight over it. And even if you do, they're going to hire every merc in the game to protect their money. So what happened? What happened?
Yeah, I think I think this is textbook example of a Pyrrhic victory that they did against us because they left Geminate to move into Innsmother to keep Try out, and while they were doing that, they just couldn't hold the drone land, so that money fell. They spent 300 billion. I think Elise confirmed that at some point to keep PL out of our Keepstar fight. They spent 300 bill to not do anything for PL. So I can only imagine what they spend on the people they actually hired to do stuff.
I mean, they hired Horde and they paid them, but Horde didn't do anything.
Yeah, they had like damage on our Keepstar, but they didn't do much. But they were like in the bigger fights. It's just another 100 dudes shooting with battleships at your Keepstar at each point. Like there was a lot of dudes there, and we couldn't just fight it anymore. So it did have an impact, but I think they just spent too much money and too much energy because they're all like a bit of crabs and they've been CTAing because Russians call everything max CTA. So they've been CTAing for 10 months and they're pretty much done, I guess.
I got a funny story. I was talking to an initiative guy about an upcoming GOTG timer, and he goes, "Oh man, we're gonna have to really be prepared for this because they've called a CTA for this timer. Someone gave me the ping, and it's a CTA for Guardians of the Galaxy." And I go, "Oh yeah. Why are you worried?" He's like, "Well, they CTA'd it." I go, "Okay. What's a CTA?" He goes, "Well, Initiative does 2 or 3 CTAs a year. It means everyone needs to be there." And I go, "I see the problem here. GOTG does 2 or 3 CTAs a day. So there's a slight difference in what that word means to you and what it means to them."
GTG has a red pen. That's I think
Yeah.
above CTA. That's actually funny. But
They only do those 2 or 3 times a week, the red pen.
Man, what a shit show! You did mention Horde, which was something that was kind of curious in that the DRF had
One
hired
thing-
Horde. What you
thing I
got,
didn't
Jay?
include this week was like in the show notes is Horde has started a rental alliance. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, and
Man.
Calaval, I can't say that region name. Calaval.
Kalavala.
Lavella. Yeah, they're gonna hack away at those stations, I assume. Now that XX just given up. So yeah, if
Yeah.
you're looking for free stations, you should probably all go to Kalavala, whatever it's called.
A bunch of white guys try to pronounce that word.
It's
Yeah, so they've started their own renter lines, and like they're gonna put renters in the drone regions, I guess.
We'll see how that.
Yeah, like this whole thing is kind of interesting because you do see everybody trying to create renter alliances and fight over these scraps, and the real money has kind of moved on from renting, and people are not really focusing on moon goo, which is awesome for us because it means that the less galactic supply there is in moon goo, the richer the Imperium gets. So high fives all around, but. The idea that the drone regions is this endless fountain of renter money is it's a lot harder to actually run a renter alliance than I think people realize. It's not just like, oh wow, we're going to start this and everything's going to be fine, but whatever.
My maintenance, yeah. You need to actually have people that look after it constantly.
Yeah, like for example, like it's you essentially need in many ways like an entire Diplo team, but you're like managing customer relationships. Like you need to have contacts with every single entity that you are renting to and keeping them happy and keeping them from jumping ship to a different renting entity. I mean, there's going to be like at this point that means that there's going to be like at least 5 or 6 different entities that are trying to rent out space in the drone regions, where previously speaking there was really just a couple.
Well, think about this. You had DRF guarding NC Dot's renters before, right? That's who NC Dot paid through non-aggression, basically, if you want to call it that. That's how NC Dot kept their rental empire, um, protected. They didn't really do it themselves. They basically used the threat of them attacking and saying we won't do it to do it. So now the DRF can't do that anymore. So who would be the person that NCDOT gets to do their work for?
I think no one hits it really because when Skill Yourself attacked, they didn't hit it, and I think the last ones before that to attack drones was us. And when we actually hit bot, like we got fucking mega dunked. So I think everybody knows if you don't hit bot, they'll just ignore you. And
Well,
then
CapQ said last week that they got considerations from NCDOT not to hit it.
they got paid to not hit it, which is hilarious because then you're paying Capcu to kill XX, which is essentially what happened.
Yeah, that is a really kind of a curious situation. And another thing that Quarns has pointed out here in chat is that the implication of Horde trying to set up a renter alliance is it then follows that they're not making nearly as much money as they used to or they thought that they were from their perimeter Fortizars for market shit.
I mean, they're just terrible at spending the money.
I mean, if you have a free region that is just sitting there, I would take it and I would try to rent it out. I mean, it's an extra like 100 bill a month probably. Clever's pretty shit, but you can probably get 100 out of it. That's pretty decent.
So based upon your knowledge of that area, you think that that region rented out would be 100 bill a month?
Well, it's not great, so maybe like 80 to 100. Yeah, there's some high end dead end systems. You can rent that out for a
That's
lot of money.
that's really bad.
It
Some of our
depends.
expenses. It
If
looks
you
like
have
a pretty
like
good region.
you just pay like two people a bit of money to manage it for like non-stop, and you just don't have to look at it again.
Well, it's a full-time job for your renter managers, basically. And
Yeah, I
then,
mean, for
yeah,
an alliance like Horde, I don't know. Like, I could try. It's like 1,000 men and like 1,000 man alliance, and we make nothing from ratting tax or anything. So all the money helps.
that is that is curious. So what do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think that what's the next step for what's left of the DRF? Like, do you think they're going to be able to make any kind of comeback with the whole impasse thing? Are they just going to sort of like crab off and die? Like, where do you?
I don't know. I think X-Death, that he was really confident they would come back, and then Clara was more realistic. Like X-Death is more, yeah. I think X-Death was like, we're going to come back hard, blah blah blah. We're not even going to die. Clara was a bit cautious. I think the Crabs will be perfectly happy, but I'm not sure they'll be as big of a powerhouse, if you can call them that, as they were, especially if they're under Legacy, because then they basically have to listen to Progon and Villy.
Yeah, that is going to be really curious because I mean, one of the things that this entire situation has revealed is because, well, it appeared that they over relied on mercenaries without building up much of a super capital fleet at all, despite the fact that they had all these riches. So if they're going to be just like hanging out in impasse, in order to be a force to actually take some space back and like do something, they're going to need a super fleet.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that I don't know well, we can all guess where the money went, but it actually didn't stay in their alliance. There's no way, because yeah, we'll see how it goes. But they had they're bad at spending the money. Just that's how it was. Because I think what they made in a month from all of Drone Lands is what we spend in total on the war in 10 months.
wow. Do you have any evidence about how much they did spend, like from like spies and things like that?
The Kalevala expands.
That's how you pronounce.
What the fuck was that?
Thank you. Was it Siri or Google?
Yes.
Yes. So I think someone added up all the lost mails alone. So this is without mercenary contracts. Was around 2 trillion or something like that, 2.5 trillion in just losses that they had to SRP, and on top of that, a bit of guesswork, but I would say at least another trill in mercenary contracts, at least. That would be like 3 trillion easily on us. We spent like not even a fraction of that on the 10 months of war.
It seems like, well, maybe this is incorrect, but DRF spent a lot of money on mercenary contracts, right? And Capcom is getting paid, but it seems like they're getting paid a lot less. So I was going to say maybe that mercenary contracts are not worth it at all, but maybe that's not true. Maybe it's just hiring the right mercenaries is the only way to get value for your dollar.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They must have paid Sword a lot when he invaded Dronelands, because like I'm still pretty pissed about that. We had the Solar Keepstar in Detroit in Hull, and he came to help for the armor timer. And like after the armor timer, the morning after, he says, "Yo guys, we're out. There's no deal. We are not hired." Like 7 days later, he shows up on the DRF side. Like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah,
I,
they must
I,
have spent a lot of money on Sword.
You went wrong trusting Sword Dragon's word. That's
Yeah,
what
that
you
was
did.
retarded. I'm never doing that again. I was listening to Capco last week. He had this book of grudges. We had that on the forums as well. Like of Try, we've had it for years. The book of grudges, but now we just have to look at our Keepstar Lost Mail to see who we hate. So in case we forget, we can just look at that and go after them next.
That's amazing. Yeah, it is odd, that entire thing, like how they would spend money on, like, you know, who in their right mind would hire Sword Dragon for anything?
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, I just don't really understand. Like, all of those maneuvers confuse me. Mercenaries can be a huge waste of money, right? Like, you can say, oh, we're going to totally hire PL, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But usually speaking, it's the guys who are sort of young and hungry, right? Like the uh, smaller entities that actually need to hustle to make money that you actually get your ISK value for. Any of these big, like, oh, we paid 100 billion ISK kind of things only makes sense if you're making money from casinos or from other unusual sources, I guess. Okay. Well, do we want to go over anything else about the hilarity in the drone regions before we move on to the Nullsec Power Hour?
Yeah, I want to ask. CPA what. So just assuming that DRF moves to impasse, would and are affiliated with Legacy, do you guys still have any beef with them? What would be your story there?
Oh, for sure. When we helped test moving to catch, obviously a lot of people did, but we did too versus Stainwagon, and after that was done, test basically announced us as their forever mortal enemy. So that's mutual by now. So two bads, they still make pretty big bads. So we're gonna, yeah, for sure on the list. Let's say. Obviously, we're like a 1,000 man alliance versus like, is it now 50K or something that Legacy will have people? So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we'll definitely not be friendly with them.
I am really curious about. Let me see if we actually have this on the Power Hour. This is sort of in the CCP Please section, actually, so I'm kind of confused. I'm looking at our show notes here, and I kind of want to like point and
Oh,
laugh
yeah,
at
I
the
labeled
PL
that
thing.
part wrong.
Okay.
CCP Please isn't really a CCP Please.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just move on to talking shit about that because that's a natural segue. Then I'm gonna shake things up here a bit. Um, And because I'm hosting the show today, that also means that I don't have like the Nullsec Power Hour graphics or anything. So just imagine that I'm waving my hands here and that it is now the Nullsec Power Hour. And so sort of a segue here from the DRF going and crashing on the Legacy couch. The big shakeup this week, of course, is Legacy has invaded Pravi to retake those stations from Pandemic Legion, and Pandemic Legion just sort of up and ran away. Um, what the fuck? Who wants to give me an overview of how this went down for our viewers?
Well, there was a really good stream of it. It was a stream with some good music, and all the PL caps jumping out from their Fortizar to Losec.
He got
So
screenshot, Joe. He got sniped though, I think.
he killed. It was funny. I don't think he moved his camera at all. So he came back though. Rookie mistake, but it's weird. It's hard to draw. Well, you can draw some conclusions, but it's hard to say anything concrete because the changeover doesn't happen for another 20 days, right? So, or 15 days at least. So PL could have an offensive planned, and maybe they have an offensive. Maybe they're just here to sow chaos on the Trident. You don't know, but it seems bad. It seems like there was no defense.
I'm looking forward to all the Reddit posts where PL's in Fortizar, faction Fortizar. They'll have to stay there with like their entire super fleet to flex, as ProGod said it, versus like a 1/5 the size entity. See how that goes, if they can anchor everything and get their money out of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's two ways to look at it. You could say, yeah, we want to take these, or we just kept PL from getting them, and we don't care about them. Like we'll grab them later, or they'll die, but they were free. Like, so I guess
They're going to get them from, so Legacy is going to get them from Paragon Soul, Esoteria, Faith Abilis,
It's
Impasse,
like
and
200
Catch.
plus. Yeah,
Yeah, like Providence is just a bonus round at this point. So even if they get a couple, then that's well
I
done.
got
for them, I
a
guess.
serious fuckload of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's 79 outposts in Providence.
I am
which is,
curious. Like, do we know if Legacy is looking to like hand any of those back to CVA, or is Legacy like is that just sort of like the open question here? Because I mean, Legacy would, I mean, CVA if they want to, or any of the private guys, because it's not just CVA there. There's like a shit show of like Severance and a whole bunch of other random little entities. Due to the way that Fozzysoft works, like those guys have actually they've got to get off their asses and hack and then defensively hack as needed to recapture and maintain those stations. They don't really have
Solve's
the
already
numbers.
flipping. I see. Well, I see. Well, I look at the probably like map. There's a lot of CVA and other alliances. I have no clue who they are. I assume they're going to move back in.
That makes sense. I mean, they can just sort of like grind their way through it if PL has just completely. Have they done any? Has PL done really much of anything after getting back to Asa besides getting mocked on Reddit a bunch?
I think if they've done what they can versus like the mega blob, just like
I've seen a
no
bunch of
commitment,
like
thing, acceptance and stuff.
flying from both sides.
You've seen a lot of
Seems to
what
be
on both sides?
like interceptors, like
Yeah, like the good old fuzzy claw stuff.
Yeah.
That's happening for sure. And one side smart rooms the other ones, and then like they smug about it, and then they back and forth. But yeah, I don't know. They're fighting like fuck tons of dudes, and they have no supers there, so Tess can just run around with supers. No, like there's not much you can do really.
That is one of the things that came out of this is, there've been a couple of incidents, we'll call them that, and this will be in a moment our segue to the Kenshin stuff. But there've been a lot of incidents in PL where people have been basically shutting off clone bays and their keep stars. Headliner has had a couple of stereotypical rages, which is actually just a normal headliner fleet. But we're starting to see leaks from PL, which is just not something that you used to see back when PL was in a stronger place. And I think it's going to be it's a,
PGL posted like their forums on like Reddit.
Yeah. Did everyone read those? I mean, that's the first time I've ever read a PL update because we've never had any spies in them before. So that was really interesting for me to read them for the first time.
the was that PGL who posted that? I assume you're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
like the
it was like
headliner or the three
in
headliners, like kind of
3,000 word essay or
Chaos is a
whatever.
ladder.
Yeah, that was those posts really remind me of sort of like a 2008 era style of post, like a much more herfblurf kind of Eve Online era than I had anticipated. Like if I wrote something like
Isn't
that on the Goonswarm forums, I would just be mocked to hell and back. And I used to post shit like that all the time, and then that kind of herfblurf crap fell out of fashion. So it was
isn't,
really like
isn't
a
Headliner a
relic.
really old player? So like maybe he just still like a role player is like he came from that role playing era and he still enjoys it. That's a serious question. I'm not mocking him. I don't know the answer to this question.
I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, he's been playing for a really long time. So I'm not sure whether he's been posting like alliance updates or something like that before, because we've never had spies in PL and we never will. We have no spy agency, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
But it is like a relic from another age.
CPA, when you write an update, or have you written updates before?
Yeah, I sometimes write updates, but I'm pretty straightforward. I leave like the big curve bluff posts. Garst, he's really he's really good at it. But yeah, he just makes mostly just straight to the point.
Yeah, Herfblurf is really just something that people don't want or need as much anymore. So when you see like a really, really herfy post, it just sort of it sticks out, especially in an environment where you're losing. Right. One of the things that was fascinating about those leaks was how it revealed that this is something we suspected, but it was sort of stupid, so I didn't really think it was going to be the case. But they really believed that PL doing their thing combined with NC going to Gehi was going to like draw the Imperium SIGs and squads out of the north and force everybody back into Delve. And
Don't need to do that when the QFC is defending it for us. Thanks, guys.
They don't even bring their bomber fleets to Delve anymore. So it's like they've just given up. It's like even when they weren't even deployed to Gehi, they were still doing more than what they were doing now when they're deployed.
I know we're enjoying the super smug. I do want to ask CP a serious question. If you were the guy who was running NC and PL, what would your next move be? Like after June 5th, obviously that's when a lot's going to change. So I'm putting you in charge, and I'm saying do what's best for these alliances. Like, what will put them in the best place in the future. What would you choose to do?
I would just point to what we did as try, and what NC Dot has done in the past and PL used to do is just say fuck it, like our own shit on the line. That's fine. We don't care about solve. Stop the rock walls, pause the rock walls, and go invade something for real with supers, with everything, like max everything. That's what we did with try. Put everything on the line, make it meaningful, and people will log in for that, and they will even join you for that if they're not in your alliance. That's what I would do.
I would love to see it. I mean, I've often wanted to see NC Dot go their own way, separate from PL, as opposed to like the sort of weird codependent relationship that they have. I think it's in an unusual place now, where like it has now been shown that as long as you have enough fax machines nearby, an enemy can't just dread bomb things and hope that magic will happen. So PL and NC Dot leaving their supers behind up north while trying to use just regular caps and subcaps in the south has just really run into hell of a dead end.
I think if you those content deployments that we used to do as well as try are kind of an era that's now gone because everybody has massive fax caches. Everybody's caught up. If you look at like test super numbers from a while ago, they weren't as high. But if you feed a bunch of dreads, looking at like fraternities feeds as well to them, like everybody's gonna be, oh my god, I want a Titan. This is awesome. Everybody get Titans. So it just makes your enemy grow their super fleet if you weld a bunch of normal caps into them.
That's
Obviously,
absolutely the case.
sometimes it's a trade-off. Like you have to sometimes take the bet. You think you can kill whatever you're going after, and sometimes it doesn't work. But if it keeps not working, you should probably do something else.
One of the funny things, Noisy Gamer made a joke about PL about how can they fight right now because they have to prepare for the Alliance tournament. But that is another strategic consideration. Is the Alliance tournament prizes aren't monetary? Like they're not giving out Alliance tournament ships anymore. So back in the day, when they weren't relying on casinos for money, PL would try to fight and take the Alliance tournament very seriously and win a bunch of special ships that they can then rely upon as a stockpile to sell off for ISK. But that's out of the way now too. So if they're not getting a huge pile of stations in Providence, and the Alliance tournament isn't going to be a source of income for them anymore, that's going to be funny, I think. But it is strange. Like we had a very short Illuminati meeting this week. Because I had really expected more. And maybe if we talk mad shit about them on the meta show and on the fireside, then they'll up and do something. But I never expected NC to degrade to a point where the fucking Quarius Fight Club is fighting off NC Dot on their own. Like, what is even happening?
Well, I mean, I hate to be in the position to defend NC Dot, but this was an ill-conceived thing from the start, right? So, and your members are not going to go on something that is patently stupid to them, and we know or we suspect from sources like that NC Dot members are not happy with the deployment, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. People in this game are not soldiers; they don't have to show up; they vote with their feet, right? And when you're doing something that isn't fun, that you don't like, then people won't show up for it. And so you have to either give them a narrative that interests them, like say, hey, we have to do this because it'll cause these guys pain, and that's what we want, and it'll pay off in the end, or give them something that they want, which is usually fights, right? So one of those two things, and it wasn't provided. So it's not indicative of like the true power of NC Dot, what's happening in Gehi now. That's not what's happening. We're seeing them with uninspired members doing an uninspired thing that they've done 3 or 4 times before, and it was never like very good. Like, so when you say, hey, let's do the same thing we did before, it didn't work before, and hopefully it'll be better this time, it's not a good way to get people to do things. So I think come June 5th we'll see a better plan from them.
That makes sense. And that is actually a fantastic segue for us to move into talking about Kenshin and the North. So let me set this up a little bit. So, we've been talking about how in PL and NC Dot having some uninspiring leadership, or in the case of PL, actually toxic leadership that is resulting in people flip sides, moving our focus in the galaxy to the northwestern section. We've had even more Guardians of the Galaxy drama this week. And Asher had to make a post on Reddit that was saying essentially, this is not a repost, guys. Like, this is a completely separate iteration of this drama. And before we get too far into it, one of the things that was particularly interesting about this defector was that they handed over logs of director discussions within the Kenshin Corporation. For people who haven't been paying attention, Kenshin is the 321 Kenshin Corp, led by Vlade Randall, who is a bit of a nutter who has starred in a whole bunch of dramas throughout Eve's history, going back 5+ years. There's a bunch of pay spins of him having a meltdown with Dur. At one point, he lost to Nyx because he was trying to give it to some girl he was trying to romance, and she stole it. Good on her. There's a whole bunch of stupid Vlade Randall antics throughout Eve's history. But they had tried to dox the last defector from Kenshin and did a ham-handed job of it. And these logs showed that, lo and behold, surprising basically no one, the guys in Kenshin were conspiring together to try to find ways to let the people who had been kicked out of the corporation for being creepy shitheads to sort of revolving door their way back in. But Asher, I think this story really begins with you. Do you wanna take the lead on this one?
First off, I've always called him Vladdy Randall. I didn't know that it was Vlad, so maybe
Blade.
maybe
It's
it's a
like
Kalevala
Blade,
expanse.
but yeah.
Oh, see, that makes it much better. First off, the Imperium.news article was the best because it reminded me, or it told me that Vlade Randall was the Dumbo who who got his super stolen because a girl told him, "I want to know what it feels like to sit in a super," and so he gave it to her, and she jumped out in it. It's the
That
same guy.
guy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Imperium.news for that one. I had forgotten who that actually happened to. I knew it happened because it's one of those great stories, but you forget who it happens to. Anyway, so it's another director. Basically, what was happening was Kenshin had these guys who were doxing. There was the whole controversy where they thought the recording was over. It wasn't, and they started doing this just reprehensible discussion about the people involved in the previous heist and their real lives, their looks, like threatening to do if not illegal, at least immoral things to them. So it was very, very disturbing. And and they were told by Sword Dragon that they had to kick these people. And what they did was they came up with this secret plan to return them either on an alt. One guy sold his character on a private transaction on the eForums, and then that character rejoined Kenshin as a new person. It was sold to a different person. It's not the same guy. Um, the worst guy was on their services, and he was told that you have to wait till our probation is over. They were put on probation. So this was the weirdest thing. After it happened, Sort put up these logs where he's talking to Vladdy Randall, and Vladdy just tells him, he tells him, all right, these are the guys who we kicked, and this is how we're going to get them back in. Just matter of fact. And it was so matter of fact. It wasn't asking permission. It was just letting him know. So there were one or two implications. One implication is that Sort knew about it, and I don't think that's the case. I don't want to tar and feather Sort where I don't have to, because there's plenty to hit him with, and this one you don't have to hit him with this one because Vladdy Randall apparently is so dim and or immoral that he just thought that this was a show. This was for public, and in private, hey, Sword Dragon, here's how we're going to get these people back in. We're going to use these tricks. And Sword Dragon's like, what are you telling me this for? Like, why are you telling me it in this way? You're not asking me. You're just telling me that it's going to happen. Like, you're either disrespecting me, and it's not what he says, but like, this is the my feeling, that you're either disrespecting Sword Dragon or you think he's complicit. And for at least when the logs were released, it seems like Sword was like, that's crazy. And because it was crazy. It was like it was beyond the pale. So this guy had a plan that didn't even acknowledge what these people did was wrong. And the sad thing is that this corp is still in darkness and are have really had no repercussions, but the logs were eye-opening, to say the least.
I think it's a curious thing. So a couple things here. First of all, we are now in subs only mode, so cool kids only. We do this now for the last 15 minutes of the meta show, and we try to take Q&As from subscribers, or at the very least, you can just be smug and enjoy all of the cool new emotes. But one of the things about this of like pointing fingers at Sword and was he complicit? Did he have something to do with this? There is no question that Vlade Randall or Vladdy, which is fucking hilarious, Vlade Randall. Wouldn't see anything wrong with the behavior of his members in Kenshin because he created a culture where they all had like this little doxing party and were like just really creepy about it. So he's got an entire corporation of people who are cool with his kind of behavior. On the one hand, you could say, and I think it's legitimate, you could say that Sort didn't know and was probably a little bit surprised that Vlade was being Vlade and just trying to revolving door these guys back in. On the other hand, Sort knows who Vlade Randall is. I mean, Vlade Randall has a slime trail full of incidents throughout the history of Eve, going back years, and he's gone like, yeah, Vlade Randall. This seems like a guy whose corporation I want in my alliance, and that Kenshin has been in darkness for a long ass time. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that Vlade Randall was fucking crazy after he's been crazy repeatedly for years and years and years. How could this be? It just seems a little bit too much. Like,
I kind of want to defend him there. Like, obviously, TTG and Darkness takes most people with a pulse, but like, as much as Sword is a bit of a traitor in the game, he always defends. Like, he doesn't like that doxing shit at all. He always defends it. He's not that guy at all. So I don't think he was complicit in any way to all of that.
yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's complicit. It's more, I guess, just like bad judgment, where it's like I don't think that Sort knew that these kind of things would happen. Like in my heart of hearts, I don't think that Sort realized that Vlade was going to be as psycho as he turned out to be. Like it's one thing for him to be like, "Oops, I'm going to lose my super carrier by giving it to a girl," and it's another thing for him to go like, "Oh yeah, there's all these doctors in my corporation, and now I'm going to try to get them back in." Like that's just uh, beyond the pale. But the irony about this is that Sword Dragon, of course, claimed to have been a victim of doxing himself because he was claiming that somebody sent him a mug that said "Eat a bag of dicks." Cute mug, by the way. I thought that was pretty cool. And then, not that somebody sent it to his house, but I mean the mug itself was pretty cool. And then I think that Sword accidentally got banned from Reddit. Like another thing is talking about like things that Sort didn't know about. Like apparently his initial picture that he posted of the mug included some personally identifying information about the person who sent it, and then Sort got banned from Reddit for supposedly doxing the person that sent him the mug, which Sort was accusing him of doxing, and just I don't know what the fuck.
I haven't seen the thing itself, but he did say that it was apparently the guy at the DC that packed the package or something. That was his name, and the address was of the DC that it came from, and not actually the guy that sent it. But I'm not like I don't know if it's true or not. But that's what Sword said.
There's there's a. Did you see the theory K Color had about who actually sent Sort the mug?
No, what was it?
Because the information was left on the picture, you could see that the mug actually came from Australia, and it happened one day after Sort had that stern conversation with Vladdy Randall, where he told him basically never talk to me again, and dressed him down. So K Killer's theory was that that it's possible that Vlad Randall was the one who did it to Sort because he's Australian. The implication you were meant to draw when Sword posted was that a goon did it, but it's not. We actually don't have a ton of Australian goons. It could be anyone, but I like the theory that it could have been Vlade Randall himself because it came one day after that event happened, and it did come from Australia. So that was an interesting theory. You can't prove it, obviously.
That makes sense. I mean, none of our guys really give a shit. Like, this is one of the things about the whole like Goon Sigs and squads and the Imperium Sigs and squads going up to the north and doing things is that like we're just fucking around. Like, none of our guys would care enough to actually send Sort a mug that says "Eat a bag of dicks." Like, we're just blowing up spaceships. It's like these guys seem to have formed these circular firing squads about it.
There's crazy
But
people in every group, but we know of this particular crazy one, and the numbers and timing work out pretty well. Like that, and we know that he does this kind of stuff, that he supports it. He's the one who said we're not recording, guys. Like he's the person who was involved in it. So
My main problem with this whole mug thing is who ships a mug in an envelope? Fucking use a box.
yeah, that was weird, right? Like
Who ships a mug in an envelope?
Australian post office must be so good because that would have been broken into 1,000 pieces in America.
The whole thing just reminded me of Marlona Sky. Like, Marlona Sky ran around and told everybody that, Marlona Sky, of course, is no longer with Eve, thank God. But he ran around in NC Dot for years claiming that he had some sort of a niece and that, like, Digi, like, put a Fat Bee sticker. And it was just this completely fabricated story of, oh my
Digi
God.
came to her school, drove to her school in a different state than Digi lived. And
evil goons doxing. Yeah, it was just.
And he had pictures of the stickers too, by the way, to prove it. Like, oh, here are the stickers in the backpack. That's the evidence, guys.
Made up shit, basically. And so when I saw this, I'm like, okay, so, I can take a picture of a mug that I have and say that somebody sent it to my house in a blue, 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 blue. Like, it's fucking stupid, especially because, like, for veteran Eve players, people who have been around, like Vlade or Sword Dragon or whatever. I mean, if you played during the Great War, I mean, you ate death threats for breakfast. Like, somebody sent me a mug, cry me a fucking river. I mean, in the year of our
Well,
Lord 2018, it's not cool, but at the same time, seeing sort of bluing about this stuff just makes my eyes roll.
I think that you're showing sort of your sensibilities that are probably not in line with the majority of people today. Like the majority of people, I'd say the vast majority, would not find that appropriate that you involve someone's real life in this in any way. And so I'm going to take sort on good faith that did happen to him, but I'm not going to have a conclusion drawn, which was the point. The point was to draw a conclusion that Goons did it, and I didn't really appreciate that. But on the other hand, if someone did send it to him, I'm going to say that that he's being honest, and I think so if that happened, that's totally inappropriate. You should not involve someone's real life in any way. That means that someone looked up his identity probably through CS. I don't know how it happened, but
Well, I mean, maybe it's just somebody who has sent him money for one of his many GoFundMe's before. I mean,
damn. Can I correct you, by the way? You said that Marlona Sky is no longer with us, but Marlona
technically,
Sky
Marlona Sky does exist.
is a super carrier pilot in the Goon Swarm Federation. So Marlona Sky is still with us today. Yes, defending what is just and right.
That's so good. But yeah, I don't know. Like the whole thing is weird, where you're like, oh, it's people want to have it both ways, right? They're like, oh, you shouldn't involve real life in Eve, which I totally agree with in principle, and I'm glad, from a certain perspective, it's a good thing. It actually, from every perspective, it's a good thing. I like the fact that the internet is getting you could say softer, or you could also say more civilized, like the fact that people are now no longer sending death threats or threatening to rape and kill your wife or any of these other sorts of things that were just sort of like par for the course during the Great War. So that's good. On the other hand, it does seem like there's sort of this, don't send mugs to my house, but at the same time, here's the GoFundMe for whatever recent thing that I just happen to want help in real life for. Right?
Don't involve real life unless it's you sending me money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically.
There is a whiff of that there, and I understand what you're saying, but I mean, everyone can bring their real life into it if they desire. And that's where it got muddy with Sword Dragon, was because his real life has been involved so much. He baited Boat into posting that thing on Reddit, and that was the intention. And Boat cited an open source, so it was like, wow, this is not as like cut and dry as you might think it is. But on the other hand, Sword got caught up in that exact same thing that got Boat in trouble, quote unquote. With the Reddit mods, is the same thing that got Sword caught out, because if you're going to apply the rules, you have to apply them evenly, and that's what they did. And so it's a weird thing that we're talking about. Not that it's wrong, just that it is something that is new. Like this is a discussion that no one would even had 20 years ago, because it didn't need to exist. And now we're in like a new world where, like, how does our online identity correlate to our real life identity? When you're like a Korean gamer, like your gamer tag is associated with your name. You can't have another one. Like there's a number that you have to enter, like a serial number, essentially.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's why like a lot of Americans can't play like League of Legends on the Korean server, because they don't have the number, and you must have the number to play. So like there's different expectations in different places, and and this is like a broader question, but how we integrate what is a very important part to us, how we integrate our online personas with our real life personas is really important. I mean, I keep them super separated. So like, I tend to fall on the side of like, please don't involve that in any way. But seeing this all shape up has been very interesting to me, just strictly from an academic standpoint.
One of the things that, sort of speaking to this, I was having a discussion with someone the other day, and they pointed out just a fascinating theory, which is, the internet is changing, and one of the reasons why the internet is changing is if you imagined a product adoption curve, right? So the idea of you have your early adopters, you have your early majority, and then you have your late majority, etc. One of the reasons why the internet might be changing and why the cultural norms of the internet are changing is because we've moved on from that like extreme early adopters only kind of.
Right, the Luddites are now using it.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking normal people are on the internet now, basically. Like, and when I say normal people, I don't mean like there's soccer moms on the internet, right? There's your grandfather is sending texts now. So where previously it was like this collection of like weird techie types 10 years ago who would send each other death threats and do all this crazy shit. Now, there's just a lot more church lady types, like literally church lady types on the internet.
What's wrong with whole hard Christians though?
Well, West Bistot Baptist Church.
This stuff.
Well, I think that's like the same thing. If someone had death threatened me, 15 years ago on my Friendster or whatever it was I was using at the time, like I wouldn't have taken it seriously. I wouldn't have like been worried about it.
People just get like they have something to be offended about and draw attention to themselves. That's a lot of it as well, I think.
Well, I think that what Mitten said is accurate, because like now I still would be worried about myself, but I'd be like, well, I wouldn't want my mom to have to deal with this, right? Like that's why I'm offended by it. It's not because it worries me; it wouldn't at all. It's because what he said, that there's people involved now that aren't working on the same assumptions that we are, that are morally decent people, unlike us reprobates.
Yeah, it's a changing culture, and I think it's because it's just a different population of people on the internet. That's the best theory that I've heard about why the internet is going mad in terms of like the culture, even beyond Eve, right? Like you're seeing just a lot of just craziness break out, and I think it's because there are certain like personality theory, like there's certain types of people that are now on the internet that weren't really as much, like Asher will get a kick out of this, but everybody else will roll their eyes, but like there just weren't that many like SFJs on the internet, and now there are SFJs on the internet, and they're flipping their shit because they can't handle things outside of churches, basically. But yeah, that's a theory that came from Corey Lorenz. I did not come up with that. She did, and I think that it's accurate. But yeah, so that it is fascinating to see how all this works out. What do we want to wrap up with? We're coming to the end of the show now, and I think we've missed out on talking about a newbie FC killing a botting Nix on his first fleet. That's pretty cool with Whelp Squad.
Who's that guy? That guy is awesome. He's come to our space like twice. He flies no logi, just all damage. It's like the best. He should continue. Just keep coming to our space.
That's Teehee, right?
No. Teehee's got some supers, but Teehee's been around for a long time. Now this is by definition a new guy, right? So I don't know his name, but
he needs to keep doing what he's doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, congrats to him. I saw the mail pop up. It was a bunch of like T3 battle cruisers. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even know we had a fleet of those.
Oh wow, yeah. Jay, what's the name of this guy?
Talion Real.
Sweet. That's pretty badass. I'm gonna link the kill mill here.
He's a TNT dude. And I think there's a
there we go.
Reddit post about him.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Props to him. His fleets look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's Whelp Squad boys and girls there out there kicking ass and taking names. All right, well, also Will Malcuris, thank you for 20 months in a row. So thanks a lot, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap this show up this week. We will be back next week. I don't know what we're going to be covering, but we will probably be covering, hopefully, lots of drama involving the final push for everybody to snap up all these stations just before the big June 5th patch comes in. June 1st is the deadline.
Let's make sure
That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. One of the things we noticed last show was whenever we started talking shit about PL, the number of viewers jumped by like 90. So, there might be a selfish motive in us just randomly talking smack about PL because they all tune in to watch.
Everyone wants to see the clippings, negative or positive.
That's true. Any attention is good attention. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I'm going to go ahead, and since it's me hosting this and I tend to do a bad job of turning the show off, unlike Boat, I'm going to play the intro again, and that'll be that. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, and we will catch you next week.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.